Well, President Trump could be one of the worst environmental presidents we've seen in my lifetime. And today, he can add another arrow to his quiver. Because this morning, President Trump is about to roll back. He's going to open up more than half of Alaska's Tongass National Forest. He woke up to this headline this morning. Trump to strip protections from Tongass National Forest, one of the biggest intact temperate rainforests in America and in the world. So what this will happen is he's going to open this up to logging and other forms of development, this amazing area. And they're going to allow logging and other forms of development, according to a notice posted Wednesday, stripping protections that had safeguarded one of the world's most intact temperate rainforests for nearly 2 decades. Of course, they were put in place under President Clinton back in 2001. This is one of the most sweeping public lands rollbacks that Trump has enacted as president. Hey, trying to sneak these things in right before Election Day, right? Get these in there right before Election Day. The reason that this is so troubling, according to environmentalists, is because this is an old growth forest. These trees are twice the age of America. Can you I can never, whenever I hear stuff like that, like, hey, that turtle is older than America. You ever see one of those like big, massive turtles? What are they, like tortoise? What are they? Those big, I don't know. I'm looking over at you like you're a biologist, like you're a zoologist. Philip, do you know what those things are? The giant ones, you know, that you see them at a zoo. They don't move. Tortoise? Yeah, like the Australian. Turtles live in the sea. Okay. Yeah. You're not tuning in here. You're not tuning into Animal Planet to get your animal news, that's for sure. Anyway, the big ass ones, you know what I'm talking about. Those things like are 300 years old. Anytime I hear that that's the case, I'm like, wait a second, that's older than America? That turtle? That tortoise? I can't wrap my head around it. I have multiple heads. Give me some more coffee this morning. So these trees are like 400 and 500 years old. Massive. And the reason that this is such an issue is because it's considered a carbon sink, meaning that it's been sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere for 500 years. And when you cut these trees down, environmentalists say that it's the equivalent of putting 10 million new cars on the road. Think about that for a minute. Putting 10 million new cars on the road at a time when we have increasing CO2 emissions in this world and temperatures rising, sea levels rising, Arctic ice shelf in Antarctica collapsing, glaciers melting into the water. Yeah, we need more CO2. This is a good opportunity. Unbelievable. So for many years, federal and academic scientists have identified the Tongass Forest as an ecological oasis there, serving as a massive carbon sink. It has massive implications in the environment. Key habitat for wild Pacific salmon that's there, trout, black-tailed deer, all kinds of other species in this area. Has the highest density of brown bears in North America. Some of these trees, by the way, I'm giving you half. Some of them are 1,000 years old. Some of these trees are 1,000 years old. So they're going to open up these roads now to allow them to build roads into this forest, so these logging companies can go in and start cutting them down. Now, if Vice President Biden is elected president on November 3rd, he would immediately probably roll this back on January 20th and 21st when he's elected through executive order. But you have that window of time. So now all these logging companies can go in there and basically rape the countryside in a short amount of time. Build these roads, get in there, and start clear cutting these forests. Tongass, Dominic DeSala, who's a chief scientist with the Earth Island Institute, says wild tropical rainforests are the lungs of the planet. And he said it's America's last climate sanctuary. So this will be published in the Federal Register, and it will allow 188,000 forested acres available for timber harvest. Now, what about the senators? Dan Sullivan, our little crony Dan Sullivan, the senator from Alaska, who, of course, we've been following here on the show, watching that race closely because of his ties to the Pebble mining. The Pebble mine, of course, being in cozy with the Pebble mine and trying to push for that, being told to keep his mouth shut because these guys are donating so much money to his campaign and re-election. Where does he come down on this? He went to meet with President Trump months ago and lobbying him to have President Trump roll this regulation back. So Dan Sullivan says it'll be good for our economy because Alaska is hurting. I get that. But is this the answer to open up this pristine wildlife preserve so that these logging companies could go in there and rape the side of the mountainsides in Alaska? That's going to help so many Alaskans. Are you kidding me? No, it'll make these big companies richer. That's what it'll do. So Dan Sullivan went to President Trump and asked him to roll these regulations back. And apparently in the meeting, this is interesting, according to the people that were in this meeting, President Trump said, "I don't understand how you have an economy without roads." When the Washington Post reached out for comment from the White House on that, they didn't comment. They didn't verify that. They wouldn't say anything about it. How do you have an economy in Alaska that has no roads? So Trump's like, yeah, I want roads up there. Got to get roads. How do you have an economy? Through a rainforest. So President Trump has now rolled back or weakened more than 100 different environmental regulations. So add this to your quiver, Mr. President. Think elections don't matter? Through executive action, these things can be President Clinton did it under executive action, protecting this forest. President Trump, through executive action, rolls it back. You don't think elections matter? They certainly do. Because we don't have to wait for Congress to get off its butt to do any of this. Going back to Theodore Roosevelt being able to push these executive actions through. The reason we have Yellowstone, the reason we have these pristine national parks, because of Theodore Roosevelt, a Republican. And by the way, my favorite president. Let me know your thoughts on this. How many Alaskans are watching this morning? Where do you come down on this? Should we open these timberlands up to logging? Or should we protect them? Let me know in the comments below. Thank you for subscribing to the channel.